Hi everyone, it's Tanya. Welcome or welcome back. And today I wanted to share with you books that I read in the month of September. So let's begin. September was quite a good month in terms of reading, not in terms of amount of books that I read, because I've only read 3 books in September, but just like quality, I guess, and like my liking of the books. It was quite a good month. So there was only one disappointment, which we will talk about right now, and the disappointment came in form of Little Women. Well, Good Wives to be precise, because the first part of this book, Little Women, I adored. I loved it with my whole heart. I thought that it's becoming my new all-time favorite book. I adored every page. I just absolutely loved how she describes her girls and how naive they are and how simple and how kind-hearted they are. And I just thought it was such a kind, wonderful book. I just loved it in the first part. And then Good Wives happened. So Good Wives, the beginning of Good Wives I also quite enjoyed. So the Meg and her new married life, it was also funny and interesting. But then just two words completely ruined everything for me. Like, let me just quote it for you. I wonder if something like this has ever happened to you, like just 2 words ruin your whole perception of the book and completely ruin your love for the book. So let me just quote it for you. Many nations are represented, many languages spoken, many costumes worn, and on a sunny day the spectacle is as gay and brilliant as a carnival. Haughty English, lively French, sober Germans, handsome Spaniards, ugly Russians. Ugly Russians. After these 2 words, I threw this book into the corner. I was so angry. I feel like it's a stupid reason, yeah, probably, but I'm still offended. Like, this woman called my people ugly. Well, I strongly disagree. First of all, I strongly disagree. I just wonder how many Russians did she meet in her life? Like 10, 20, 50 maybe at best. And then she judges the whole nation. I was so angry. And then I was just curious and I googled her own picture. I feel like no words are needed. After these 2 words happened, like all I could see in the book were faults. And I just couldn't. Even my love for the first part of the book was still completely ruined. So I don't see myself rereading the book. I think about maybe throwing it into the trash. Like, I'm still debating it because I remember how much I loved the first part, but then I still remember the 2 words ugly Russians, and I'm like, this book belongs to trash. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. But also after I still continued reading because I was like, I need to form like a full complete opinion of the book. So I read it, and still it didn't become better because, by the way, if you haven't read this book, from now on there will be spoilers, so skip this part. She married Amy to Laurie. How? I don't see these 2 characters together. Like, honestly, Amy, she was my least favorite daughter of all of them. I just didn't care for her, like, I just didn't. But whatever. The worst part came with Jo. Jo was my favorite character. Jo was my favorite daughter out of all of them. She is so smart, she is so high-spirited, she is so also responsible for her family, and she wants to help everyone. She is also able of taking responsibility and doing something real, like going and selling her hair for her father. So she is such a wonderful character and I loved her so much. And then in Good Wives, I see her married off to some 40-year-old loser. And I just couldn't accept this. And don't get me wrong, age is not a problem here. The problem is that he's a loser. The problem is that the person in 40 years of his life didn't learn to provide enough for himself. And now he's getting married to Jo. How could she? How could she give my favorite character to a loser? I couldn't forgive her for that. And I just don't see them together. Because the man has no money, he is poor, and he is not able to provide for his family. Luckily for him, very luckily for him, Aunt March dies very in time. She dies very timely, and she very kind-heartedly leaves a whole mansion to Jo. So he got lucky. But if Aunt March didn't die, what would happen, I wonder? If Aunt March would not give the mansion to Jo, what would happen? So in my idea of what would happen, they would have a family, and he wouldn't be able to provide for this family. So Jo would have to do it. And how would she do it? She would write her stories for the newspapers that newspapers buy and pay her for. But he, being so educated and being so intelligent, would hate those stories, and he would hate Jo for writing those stories. Jo would hate herself for writing those stories, but she would still want to provide for the family because her husband doesn't do it, because he is incapable of doing it, because he is a 40-year-old loser. So I just don't see how this relationship would work, and how could she? How could she give my favorite character away to that man? Like, I do not understand. Also, after my love for the first book has completely died, some behavior of their mother sometimes was very questionable for me. For example, when she goes away to Washington or whichever city she went to take care of their husband, she told the girls to go daily to that poor family. Didn't she expect that people at that time could get sick easily, especially if they're poor? And if they're poor, they don't have money to invite a doctor, and they don't have money to get the medicine. So didn't even just cross her mind that someone in that family could get sick, and then her daughters could get sick as well, and she is not home to take care of them? Like, didn't even just a little bit crossed her mind? after those two words, Russians, the book just died for me, and my love for this book also died. And all I could see were faults. This book I considered a disappointment, and I honestly do not see myself rereading it, so I might throw it to trash. Yeah, maybe I will. But luckily, the other two books that I read in September were wonderful, and I loved them both. So the second book being Circe by Madeline Miller, and I have a whole vlog reading this book. I will link it right here so you can watch. But in general, this book was amazing, and I loved it with my whole heart. So now Madeline Miller has two books out. She has The Song of Achilles and this book, and both of them I loved so much. So I cannot wait for some other book of hers to come out and to read it. I loved this story so much, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. If you're into historical fiction, if you're into Greek myths, if you're into ancient Greece, so highly, I couldn't recommend this book enough. And it was just so interesting. Circe is such an interesting character. I love how she developed and how she grew, and I love the person she became. Also, it was really interesting to see the relationships in all of those like divine families and how they treat each other, and I just loved it. I have nothing but love for this book, and I couldn't recommend it enough. So if you haven't read Circe, what are you doing? Go and read it, it's wonderful. And the last book that I read in September was The Beast Player by Naomi Uehashi. And this is a Japanese young adult fantasy novel. So it's the first young adult book that I read and actually enjoyed. So that's good. That makes me very happy that I am capable of loving young adult literature because I thought that I wasn't. So this book follows the story of a girl named Ellen. She lives in the small village, and her mom, in our modern terms, she's like a veterinarian for these magical beasts. The beasts' names are Toda. So Toda are used by people for war, and that's why they're very important in the village. And her mom, she is like the best at taking care of them. She is the best beast keeper in the village. That's why she has the best beasts. So she takes care of the best and the strongest beasts. But one night, all of her beasts, for some reason, all of them just die. And no one knows why. No one understands why and what happened. And her mom is sentenced to death. Logically, everybody thinks that she poisoned them for some reason. No one knows why, but she poisoned them. And so her mom is sentenced to death, and Ellie is only 10 years old, but she tries to save her mom, but she ends up in danger herself, and actually her mom saves her. And then Ellie is completely alone. She is forlorn, and she runs away from her village, and eventually she comes across this man who is a beekeeper, and he just takes care of her. And then the story develops from that. But it was a wonderful book. It was a very interesting read, and I also really liked the main character. So the protagonist Ellen, she is such a smart girl when she was a child, because later she grows up and she becomes like a very cold-minded and a very intelligent young woman. And I really liked the way relationships between her and her beasts are represented in the book. And I really appreciated that this book didn't follow the trope of like the chosen one, like, you know, the best at everything, saving the world. Even though it could easily be that, it didn't follow that, and I was so grateful for it, because I don't like the trope of the chosen one. It just doesn't seem realistic to me, and this was not that, and I really appreciated it. And I liked how real the relationship with beasts was in the book. So beasts, the relationship is basically like it would be in our world between maybe a tiger or a lion and their trainer. So beasts remain beasts, they remain wild animals, and they can hurt, and they can be dangerous sometimes. Even if you are close to them, they still can be dangerous. And I really like that this book portrayed that. So wonderful book, I really enjoyed it. It is actually a series in Japanese, but I think there is only one book out in English, so I would love to see a second one. I don't know if they will translate it, but also, can we appreciate this cover? This cover is stunning. For me, it was a cover buy, but it didn't disappoint at all. I am so happy that I picked up this book. I'm so grateful to this cover that it drew me in. And yeah, it was a wonderful book. Highly recommend it if you want to try Japanese fantasy. And that's it, there you have it, guys. So 3 books that I read in September: The Beast Player, Circe, and Little Women. So let me know in the comments which books did you read in September, did you enjoy them, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next videos. Thank you, bye.